Hey, it's Dr. Dwain Woode, and welcome back to day 106 of our walk and day number 6 of our mini-series, The Bridge to Mastery. We've been talking about self-efficacy. We've been talking about the belief that the things that I can do, the decisions I make, can chart the course of my destiny and my success. But there is something that can maybe put a little hiccup, maybe put a little dent in that concept. And it's not your environment, it's not your schedule, it's not even the people around you or your support. It's that voice that's on the inside. And we're going to spend some time right now talking about the inner coach, which we've mentioned in several of our episodes. We're going to dive in and see how the inner coach plays a big part in what we do. Let's go ahead, let's get started. I'll see you on the walk. So we've been talking about our self-efficacy. And remember, our working definition is that belief that's based on reality, based on data, right? So it's evidence-based, the belief that I can make decisions, that I can make choices that ultimately lead to the results that I get. That's our working definition. And so we've been talking about various aspects of this, of the self-efficacy, and today we want to talk about something that is very pivotal to self-efficacy, because even though we may have data, if the lens through which we see and the voice that's in our head does not support that, then that can become a big issue. Now, here's the thing: we talk to ourselves all the time. In fact, when there's nobody around, at any moment, the person who's always there is us. And the things that are in our head, things that are in our minds, are the things that we use and the things that we say. So that you've heard me say before that all of what we do is not based on your schedule, it's not based on the environment, it's not based on the support, but is powered by you. The you that you take into all of the aspects of your life is the you that affects how things go. And so we want to make sure that not only do we have rhythm and alignment and structure, but we also have a constructive, objective, and a supportive way of having discussions and of talking to ourselves. But that dialogue that we have is very much important. The inner coach is that person, that part of us that gives us our support. It is the part of us that narrates, it interprets, it judges, it sees things in a certain way, and that is how we now begin to have those conversations. And so what we'll do is say, you always, right? So listen to that. Notice how I start that. And that is that negative idea, that negative thought, that other part of us, right? That's that inner critic that is always ready to tell us what we didn't do, how we didn't do it, how it wasn't right, how it wasn't perfect, how we never finish. And most often, that is really the person, the part of ourselves that we give ultimate power. And that's who we're listening to most of the time. That's the part of us that colors what we do, how we go about it. Today I was at a program, it was a ceremony for the success of the STEM program. So my son was graduating at the end of the program, and there were so many people that were there, so many of our young people that were mentors and lab assistants and tutors, and it was amazing to see a lot of them in that space. And one of the things that comes out of that idea, I was talking to a parent afterwards and talking about one of the challenges that we see in some of the kids is that they have tremendous ability. They have done a lot of things, but sometimes the talk that is in their head prevents them from attempting, prevents them from grasping, prevents them from going farther, because that voice in their head is telling them that they can't. Even though they're standing there right now, receiving an award, getting a white coat, getting a medal, getting a certificate, right? Some of them got their lab coats with their names embroidered as they move into the future. But even in that space, with all of the accolades that comes, isn't it tough though, that with those, we sometimes still allow that inner voice to stop us from actuating what's in us, right? The power that's within us to move and to go beyond that. And so with those 100 days, 106 days now that you've created, which are those data points, that's amazing. That's wonderful. But you got to be able to use it. You got to be able to interpret it. And you got to be able to have the coach access that so that you can be, so that you can give support and give the ability to move from this place where you may be stuck. Self-efficacy can't grow in a hostile environment. When we talked about stress causing it to be difficult to problem solve, difficult to understand, difficult to believe, well, self-efficacy is the same way. If self-efficacy is the soil in which your success grows, then your inner voice is the water, right? That waters it, that gives it that self-sustaining life. And so we want to make sure that we not only are planting in the right soil, but we're also giving the correct nutrients, water, the appropriate things that our self-efficacy needs to survive and needs to grow and needs to thrive. So how does the inner critic develop? How does that happen? How does the inner critic happen? And we've got, give me just a second here. All right, so I'm back. They've got some grass being cut, and all of that is wreaking havoc with the pollen that's still around, floating around. But anyway, so how does the inner critic develop? Well, the inner critic can develop in lots of different ways. And in order to kind of see this development, we've got to kind of think about what the inner critic sounds like. Maybe it sounds like a parent. Maybe it sounds like a boss. Maybe it sounds like a teacher. Maybe it sounds like some person that caused some trauma in our lives. And that voice gets stuck in our head. The voice, for whatever reason, right? Now, one of the things that we were talking about, I was talking with this gentleman about, was that the things that we say to kids, the things that we say as they are growing, and this is another plug for parenting, often we think that we're helping, right? We think that we are giving them support. We think that we are pushing them. We think that we are giving them motivation. But often their brain, their mind is not quite yet ready for the words that we use. So even when we are talking about encouraging someone, some of the words that we use to encourage them, or some of the words that we use to push them, are words that can be interpreted negatively. One of the phrases that we use all the time is, "What's wrong with you?" Right? So we'll see a kid doing something, and our words to them is, "What's wrong with you? Why don't you? Why can't you? Why did you?" Right? So all of those words and phrases to us sound benign, but to a child who is growing, a child who doesn't understand, a child who's not able to process, a child who even in that moment is feeling intense emotions, those words come across and they can get stuck in the mind. Remember, our emotions, if you want to remember something, attach some emotions to it. And so often when we're talking to kids, it's a very emotional time because they've done something that we're not happy about. And so our conversation is not always pleasant, right? And so perhaps in your head right now, the voice that you're hearing sounds like someone who was in one of those spaces with you, who may have been trying to correct, may have been trying to encourage, may have been trying to do something in their mind that was very benign and helpful, but in your head, it doesn't sound that way. Or maybe it did come from someone who was intent on causing damage, right? Because we have people who can cause trauma and who are intentionally causing trauma. And so the voice sounds like that. Maybe it was a boss at a job that you really didn't like, that you didn't think you should be on, that you were doing just because you needed some money and you're just biding your time, waiting until you're done. And the voice in your head sounds like that person. But for whatever reason, those voices are now stuck. And whenever we hear anything, the trigger, right? I want you to remember that word. The trigger is no longer about me being in this space right now. So when we hear that voice, when we hear those words, we're no longer standing in the present. What we've done, what has happened in our mind, our brain has transmitted us or translated us or transferred us back to that spot, back to that time when those emotions were full. And so every time we hear the voice, every time we hear that inner dialogue, we stop being the person we are now and we get pushed back in time to a time when presumably we felt we had no control, we felt we had no choice, we felt that we were inadequate, we felt that there was something wrong with us, we felt that we had to change. And so when that inner voice comes, all of those emotions, all of those feelings, all of those doubts, once again, they raise their heads. And so we are stuck in that spot now. So that's the inner critic. So several things that can cause that. But now, and maybe the inner critic voice was useful at some point. Maybe the inner critic voice helped us to, it kept us safe. It kept us from doing something that we thought was bad. It kept us from being in danger. But you know what? That inner critic, that voice is now outdated. It's no longer needed. It's no longer the space that you find. You're not that person. Remember what we've done is we have created a different, totally, completely different person from the person we used to be. And so we no longer need that voice to protect us, to support us. We no longer need to listen to that voice in that space. We no longer need that voice to transfer us to another place because we're right here. Remember, we are being mindful. And Limitless Living says that I am going to, in this moment, experience the things I'm experiencing, and I'm going to deal with them right now because I'm not allowing it to fester. I'm not allowing it to derail me. I'm not allowing it to cause doubt. I'm not allowing it to efface and erase and negate my self-efficacy. So you are the person now that's speaking. I am not the inner critic. I am giving now power. I am now giving voice. I am now giving the determination of the things that I say to my inner coach. I'm giving that ability to that part of me that supports me and pushes me in the direction I need to go. So self-efficacy requires an alignment in our narrative. It requires an alignment in my narrative. So even though I've got all that stuff behind me, I got the 100 days, 106 days now, I've got that there. if I allow the inner critic to misinterpret, misrepresent, and negate, ignore even sometimes, the things I've done, then my self-efficacy can suffer. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to have a narrative where my self-talk matches the new healthy me. So I've got to change my self-talk to now be aligned, to now match the verbiage that is appropriate for who I am and appropriate for where I am and appropriate for the person that I've now created. Because remember, you remember that several episodes ago? We stepped into the future. We're not back there. We're not allowing those things to upset the cart. We're not allowing those feelings and those attitudes that come from the trigger to take us back to a time when we were not in control. Because we talked about the locus of control. It's not out there. It's inside me, and it's not with the inner critic. It's actually with the inner coach. So what's the goal and what's the purpose of the inner coach? What's the goal? What's the purpose of the inner coach? The inner coach is designed to be that voice in our head, that is consistent with the thoughts and goals that we have. Remember that North Star statement? It is the voice that is my self-actualized support system. It's great. It's great to have community around us, and we need community around us. It's great to have the structure around me, because the structure helps me to decrease friction, resistance. It helps to automate the process. It helps me not have to rely on my motivation. But bigger than that, more important than that, is the concept that I have of myself. And so the inner coach is the concept regulator, if you will. It is the evidence, or it is the manifestation of the concepts that I have of myself. And the words that come through the coach are those words that I have now taken to heart, and the words that I've agreed that these are now what I believe and who I am. So what if the voice in your head, instead of "you don't ever complete," "you can't," "you won't," "this is not you"? What if it is that you've done things before? I've done 100 days. I've done 106 days. I've shown up. I've done the challenges. I've done the work. I've learned about resilience. I've learned about the things that I need to do to set up a schedule. I've done it before. Been there, done that, doing it again. I didn't fail. What I did was I learned. I didn't get what I was going for, but I learned from it. What if that's the voice that you have? What if those are the words that you hear? What if those are the words that your inner coach tells you, or the inner voice? You're not behind, you are becoming. You are not inadequate. And you've heard me say you are adequate just the way you are. You're adequate in this space. You don't have to run and worry about changing because you feel you're inadequate. Now, can we grow? Always. Can we improve? Definitely. Can we be better? Yep. Are there some things we need to chisel away? Oh, for sure. But you are adequate just the way you are. And those are the words that the inner coach gets to say and needs to say to us as we move through this space of being successful. So as we walk, I want you to process a couple of questions. Maybe a few questions as we continue our conversation. All right, so here are questions. What does your inner voice sound like on a hard day? What kind of words does the inner voice give to you? What does it sound like? And who does it sound like? What phrases come to mind when you're tempted to quit? Something's going, you're doing something, you're working on something, but it doesn't seem to quite be going the way you anticipate. What words bubble to the surface? Would you say those words? Would you say those things? Would you make those comments to someone who came to you for your opinion, for some advice? And what would your inner coach say instead? What should your inner coach say instead? I want you to process those, talk about those, think about those as we continue our discussion, because ultimately those are the types of things that we're going to need to use if we are going to rewrite, if we're going to adjust our inner coach. We need to process that. So what are 3 ways that we could begin training our inner coach? Well, number 1, instead of I statements, or instead of you statements, we're going to use I statements. I can. Wait a minute. What does that sound like? When we talked about the I can journal. The reason for the I can journal is that the I can journal is a way of dealing with our inner critic. It is a way of providing benefit, providing support for our inner coach. So we talked about that a couple of episodes ago, and I said we're gonna use it here when we're talking about our inner coach. And I hope you've been doing that. So your I can journal is a space where you, in the things that you do on a daily basis, the projects, the ideas, the visions, the goals, the classes, whatever it is, the relationships. If it goes well, great, right? Sit down, evaluate what happened, evaluate how it happened, evaluate what you did in the process of helping it and making it happen. And then extrapolate from that some skills. It's kind of like if you go on a job and you are leaving that job and you're creating a resume or a CV. Well, you can't just write what you did, right? So my title was blah, blah, blah. They want to know what happened. What did you do? What was going on at that job? And so what you do typically is you sit down, you think about the stuff that you did on the job. And you say, well, I'm good at typing. I'm good at organization. I'm good at using this software. I'm good at writing programs. I'm good at whatever it is. And what you're doing is basically you're taking the job that you had and you're extrapolating from it the skills that you developed. And so your I can journal is the same way. So you've done something that has been successful, and what you're doing is you are now extrapolating from that the skills that you have gained. The same thing now, if you do something that does not succeed, like you didn't quite get what your goal was, you didn't quite get there, right? And normally people would call that a failure, but we've said that we don't fail. We either succeed or we learn. And so what you want to do in those situations is you want to sit down and you want to extrapolate from that failure, if you will, or that non-success. What are the skills? What are the things that I've learned that I can now do? And you are creating your I can journal. And so the I can journal is a great way to begin doing that. You want to take those beliefs away from the inner critic, and you want to support it with the things that you can do, right? Because we're giving support there. You want to create coaching phrases based on your proof. I show up every day. I exercise. I am a healthy person. I am improving my metabolism. I'm improving my health. I'm building my relationship, right? Notice what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm taking those words and I'm creating a coach that now has phrases, right? Not just the I cans, but I now have phrases that I can use. You've made it through tougher things before, or tough things. You made it through 100 days. You made it through 106 days. I get up in the morning. And you can change that. You can do two things out of it. I can get up in the morning, put it in the I can journal, and also use it as part of your coaching manual, right? I've made it through worse things before. Breathe, move forward, right? What are the words that you're going to give the coach to use? Sit down, come up with some, create that. So that's how we're supporting the inner coach. And then we want to we want to have a reset phrases. Reset phrases. What are those? Those are those phrases we could say to ourselves in the middle of something that's going on. When we talked about the COPE model a little while ago, COPE, clarify, observe, pause, and execute. So when we pause, what we're doing is we're looking for something else to do, some other behavior other than the one that we normally go to. A lot of us go to food, right? So instead of going to food, instead of staying in the bed, instead of spending the money, instead of not drinking the water, whatever it is, right? We want to create a reset phrase. So reset phrase is one of those other things that we can do when we're doing that COPE model, right? We want to pause, we're going to find something else, and we're going to execute, right? Pause, reset, recenter. Let's walk in my truth. Pause, reset. Let me create a phrase. That's a sample one, right? So pause, reset, recenter. Let's walk into the truth, right? You are able to do that because you're creating all of those spaces. You're creating those phrases for the inner coach to use. And then you want to anchor your belief in language. Words play a big part in what we do and how we behave. And so when I'm teaching medical students, high school students, university students, college students, there are some words that we all gravitate to, that we use. Sometimes we're not even aware that we're using them. And they color how we think and what we do. One of the things that I try to get the students not to do is often I'll ask a question and they'll start their answer by saying, well, I know it's not. Notice what just happened, right? So they've spent a lot of energy in their brain and in their inner voice with what it's not, right? They spent a lot of time figuring out what it's not, but they didn't spend any time figuring out what it is. Well, I know it's not this, but I think it could be this, right? So we're going to get rid of those. We're going to get rid of those negative words. So the words are very important. Words are not fluff. They are the fodder. They are the fuel for our thoughts. Our thoughts are based in words. They're anchors. They are fuel. They are the architecture. The words you say to yourself in quiet moments becomes the reflexive words that the body uses, that the brain uses, that the brain goes to, because that's what you've been telling it. By beholding, we become changed. That's why kids catch more than what we tell them. You think that they're over there listening and hearing all the words that you're saying, and that's what they're learning. But they're actually picking up from you the behavior based on what they see. And so the words that we use, very important. I'm waiting to go across this street here. And if your reflex is your belief, then the sign of mastery is the words that we use. The sign of mastery are the words that we change, the words that we use, the words that we put into place. All right, so, we can't ever have a conversation and end without doing what? Without having our challenge. So go ahead and grab your journal, and we're going to go ahead and have our challenge. And I hope you have been going through and doing the challenges, because remember, when we are done, right, all the things that we're learning, these are all spaces, these are all instructions that we can use in our manual for success. So number one, identify one phrase your inner critic repeats. right? What's one thing that the inner critic continues to say? And I want you to replace it with a phrase your inner coach would say. I can't do that. I'm improved. Well, replace that with I'm working on that. I'm learning. I can't lose weight. I'm working to be healthy. Repeat it out loud. Do it now, over and over. And then tonight, before you go to bed, go ahead and repeat that again. Repeat it out loud. So, some phrases: I speak truth to myself. I coach myself through discomfort, because I can do that. I lead myself with power, and I lead myself with clarity. You have the ability to affect what you do by your choices, by your decisions. That is what self-efficacy is. And if self-efficacy is my belief that I can make changes and I can affect my outcome, then the words that I use are the power that allows my self-efficacy to be actuated. You've always done work. You show up. You've proven you're capable. You've been here now for 106 days. And you are adequate. Hey, so I'm glad that you're here. Glad that you've joined me. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Woode with an E. I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, go to the next level. We are now creating the life we've always wanted. Limitless living says I'm not allowing anything from outside or inside to prevent me from doing what I need to do to be successful. I'm presenting my best self, my best health, and my best plans for my life. And self-efficacy is powerful. And the words we use can push it beyond our understanding and push it into the stratosphere, because we are unlimited in our potential. I'll see you tomorrow for day number 107 for the Bridge to Mastery. I'll see you on the walk. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. And as we approach the end of our 100-day walk to consistency and health, I want to pause and invite you to look ahead. Because what we've built together is just the beginning of an even more powerful journey. Over the past 100 days, you've developed a habit. You've developed resistance, resilience. You've developed strength, and things that form the cornerstone of your success. Now, as we close this chapter, I'm excited to share that our next series is on the horizon that's going to build on everything that you've learned so far. In the upcoming series, we want to dive deeper into advanced strategies that harness your newly cultivated strengths, refine your mindset, and elevate your strategic thinking. Imagine transforming daily consistency into an unstoppable force that propels you to tackle even greater challenges with confidence. My vision for the next phase is simple: to empower you not only to sustain your current success, but to channel it into innovative strategies that drive you past these impacts that you've had to more lasting, more fulfilling impacts. We've explored how to leverage your inner strength and channel it into areas of leadership, creativity, and advanced personal growth. And we're going to go further. The habits you form are the foundation on which you can build a life of limitless potential. Every lesson, every win, every setback during the past 100 days has prepared you for what's next. Think of today as a bridge where the consistency and the discipline that you've mastered become a stepping stone towards a future when strategy meets mindset. In the next series, it's designed to help you integrate these principles to every aspect of your life, making your progress both sustainable and exponential. I invite you to stay tuned and actively participate as we embark on this new chapter. Reflect on your journey so far and consider the way that you can take these lessons to the next level. Let's step into the future together. Thank you for being part of this transformative journey. Your growth, resilience, and commitment are what this community needs. Get ready to embrace the next series, where your strengths, strategy, and mindset will propel you to even greater heights. Stay tuned, and I'll see you as we begin this exciting new chapter together.